Okay, so hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Enlightening Tangent. I'm your host Gautam, aka the Seeker of Wisdom. I'm a manifestation coach, and in this podcast today, we have Wendell Miracle. If you are, on my Instagram, you would know that I have done many lives with him. And yeah, so welcome, man. Yeah, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. So yeah, how have you been since we last spoke? And it's been a while. Yeah,
No, yeah, no, absolutely. Just to introduce myself to your followers, I'm an
yeah.
influencer on Instagram. I've been doing it for about like 10 years, doing motivational speaking, but I recently just got into like the law of assumption in 2021, and it's literally changed my life. Like I've always known about manifesting, but like
Mhm.
I just learned about like freaking how to actually do it consciously, Like so I'm just happy to share this insight with you and your followers.
Right. So how did you like get into motivational speaking? Like how did that start?
Yeah, so in 2012, unfortunately, my mother passed due to cancer, and I was really depressed, right? And I lost my job in the same year, and it was just very difficult. So I realized, you know what? Am I either going to be sad or am I going to like make something out of my life? And I always remember that my mom would want me to be happy. So I started practicing like gratitude. I read like The Secret, The Power and the Magic, and they talked about
Right.
counting your blessings. And it's like with law of attraction, like it's all vibrations, right? You can't be sad and grateful at the same time. So I was able to get out of depression, and I just started the Instagram page, and then it started in 2013 with like short videos, and it's called Hope Nuggets
Right.
because they're nugget-sized videos designed to bring you hope.
Right.
And
Right.
then it just kind of blew up. So I did doing motivational speaking. I wrote a book, and now I'm like all into this like law of assumption manifesting thing. It's like it's so fun actually.
Right. 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 So how old were you at that point? Like in 2013 when you
I
started
was
out?
20. I was 25 when I started it
Right.
out. I was
Right. Right.
25. So I'm in my
Right.
30s now. I know a lot. It's crazy, like, bro. There's so many coaches out there now, and like some of them are like, there's a lot of them on TikTok that are not good. So I wanted to say that you are one of the ones that are legit, bro. Like your content is legit. You don't give people limiting beliefs, and like you don't give any bad energy. So I just wanted to commend you for that.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, like I mean, I'm sorry for your loss about your mom and everything. But like it definitely impacted you, and I really like how you transmuted that and did something like positive with that. And like I'm sure she'd be proud of like how it has your page has grown and things like that right now. Like it's really impressive. Like you have definitely put in the work, and yeah, it really speaks for itself. Yeah.
No, for sure. Thank you. And yeah, I have a mission. Like I want everyone to know that hey, you can go through like a great loss, but your
Mhm.
life's not over. Your life's just beginning. So that's a message right there.
Right, right, right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, when you like hit your rock bottom, like, we say like the only thing to do is to go upwards, right? Like, because that's the only way. Other than, rock bottom, like the only way is to go upwards. So I feel like that's something that, people kind of reach we all have our points. And yeah, for sure, like, thanks, for like sharing that really, because and it's funny like you mentioned the year 2013 because a lot of people their pivot recently that I realized was like it was in 2013 actually. Like I don't know
Which was
why. In 2013.
oh, okay.
Yeah, because like that's when I started getting into this whole rabbit hole. I started
Mm,
exploring spirituality and things like that. And that's been the case with a lot of people, like 2012, 2013. Like that was the time when a lot of people, like regardless of their age, like that's when they started getting into all of these things. So
yeah.
it's funny that you kind of mentioned that too, because like yeah, I don't know what was it with that year and that time period or something, but like it was really like the time when like people, I guess, like really started exploring this more. And especially this like new age, like thought phenomenon kind of started to kind of rekindle, so to speak. Like yeah, so how did like you get into The Secret? Like how did that, who introduce you to that? Like what was the story with that?
Oh, great question. First of all, this is not new. It's been around forever. Like
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
Neville Goddard was what in the 1950s, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
Abdullah
yeah,
was
yeah,
like what
yeah.
way back when. It just started becoming mainstream, right? But
Exactly.
as
Yeah.
far as the secret came out in like '06 or '07. I saw
Right.
it one time at Costco, right? So I just
Right.
started reading it, and then I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like your thoughts create, like attracts like. So I believe in that. I do believe our thoughts
Mm.
create, and like so I started practicing it, right? And I was like, the secret teaches you to imagine it, feel it, believe it, blah blah blah, right? Which is
Right.
all true, but the only thing is like with law of attraction is that like they kind of spread limiting beliefs, like not to trash on them, but because I believe in it, I practiced it for a long time. I do believe in visualizing. I do believe in like
Right. Right.
having good
Right.
energy and all that, but you don't have to like be happy all the time to manifest. You know that. Like you don't
Right. Right.
have
Right.
to you don't need crystals, you don't need water, you don't need all that crazy stuff.
Mm.
You don't even need a vision board. Like if you're affirming and you're just thinking in your favor, like you taught me like to always think favorably upon what you want about your specific person or whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's gonna manifest. But I'm glad I learned law of attraction because I learned the secret, right? Like it was like the foundation, so then when I got
Exactly.
into
Yeah.
like law of assumption in 2021, it's like, oh shoot, this is actually simpler. Like there's not so many rules. So it
Exactly. Yeah.
started in '06, long journey, but now like 2022, like when I got into the whole 10K challenge, the Isn't It Wonderful challenge, the affirming challenge, that's when everything changed for me because I knew Gotham like how to manifest, but I didn't know that I had to use repetition, right? I didn't
Right.
know that because you can't just say once, "Oh, I'm rich," and then expect to be like wealthy. No, you have to repeat it because you have to reprogram your brain to know
Right.
that
Right.
hey,
Right.
wealth is the thing. Because
Right.
my whole life, unconsciously, I was thinking, "Oh no, I'm not rich." So now that's why repetition is important because you have to retrain your neural pathways in your brain. So I
Exactly.
knew how
Yeah.
to manifest, but I didn't know how to consciously manifest until like I'm gonna say 4 months ago. But
Yeah.
now my
Yeah.
life's
Yeah.
totally different. So '06, but 2021 I learned law of assumption, and 2022 is when took it to the next level.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because like I think you mentioned a very good point there. Like the repetition is key because one thing that I found was like, well, you can actually just say it once and leave it if you don't have a lot of like limiting beliefs surrounding
Exactly.
that,
Exactly.
right?
But if you grew up
But
poor,
yeah,
if you grew up poor, you have to constantly say that you're rich. You have to use repetition because your whole life you were poor, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
your subconscious only knows being broke. So the only way to get out of that is through repetition. But like you said, if you don't have limiting beliefs and if you kind of already have experienced it, you can say it once and it'll manifest.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if you have resistance, the way to break resistance is repetition.
Oh, definitely. Because I think like when people are quote unquote like manifesting the big stuff, they
Yes.
definitely have a lot of resistance.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so I mean that's why repetition becomes like a part of the process already. And I definitely agree with you on the whole law of attraction being like the foundation. Like
Mm,
because that's how I kind of went through it as well. Like I learned the secret. And then like a lot of things weren't like it wasn't clicking for me. I
mm.
had like a few successes here and there. I was still in school. I was still kind of like failing my exams, but I had successes in some other areas of my life, and that's when I kind of like took some time off. To kind of like experiment on my own. Like I
Right.
was like, okay, I'm gonna like I'm gonna just do it my way, and I just
Mm.
started affirming, and I was applying law of assumption without even knowing that was the law of assumption. And then
Exactly. You didn't even
when I
know.
yeah, exactly. So by the time like law of assumption came, it was just a refinement of that, and like and I was like, okay, so this makes much more sense, and it was much simpler. Like, tell me what you feel about this, but like one thing that I've been telling my clients recently is like like law of assumption is very simple at its bare bones. You get clear on what you want, you assume that's true regardless of what you see in the 3D, and you simply persist in that until it comes true. Like, that's it. Like anything else, like techniques or anything else is something that you're doing to just convince yourself that it's already a done deal, and that's about it. Because I feel like a lot of people are like very focused on like techniques, or should I say it this way, should I say it that way, and things like that. And I just feel like all you really have to do is just assume that whatever you want is already a done deal,
Oh my
without
God, I
kind
can't.
of justifying the circumstances, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Yes, no, I agree with you 100%. The manifesting, bro, is so easy. It's literally just affirming it until it shows up. That's how I see it.
Yeah, yeah,
But by the way, I want to clear something up because you know how you say like assume. It's hard. Okay, I wanted to clear something up with people. Like people think that you have to assume it in order for it to manifest. The way I've experienced it, bro, is like I am like affirm it, right, and then you see movement, and then after you see it like come to pass, then it becomes an assumption. Then you don't have to affirm for it anymore, but
right,
you have to keep affirming for it until it becomes an assumption, if that makes sense. So like for example, say you're broke, right? And like you're, or if you don't have a job, right? You keep affirming, oh, I'm so grateful for my job, so grateful for my job. Like you can go through three straight interviews where they reject you. You just have to keep saying, no, I got my job, I got my job, I got my job, and
right,
not
right,
let the
right,
3D, like, don't let it discourage you because that's just old thoughts, you know? So you just have to keep affirming it. And then eventually the 3D will catch up to your consistency saying you do have a job. And then bam, it shows up really fast. But the problem with people is when they see that negative circumstance, they quit. They freaking give up, and they like, let me, you know what? Let me try a new technique. Let me try doing this. No, if you had just kept affirming, that would have flipped and changed in your favor. So absolutely, bro. It's not even about techniques. Like you said, the techniques just get you to that state. But if you're just consistent with your thoughts, you don't even need those techniques. You are the technique. Like your
exactly.
thoughts
Yeah,
are the
yeah,
technique.
you are the technique. Yes. No,
So
I agree with
definitely
you.
there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because like I completely resonate with that because like a lot of people are putting their power outside of them
Uh-huh.
way too often these days,
Oh my
and I always
God. Tell
like
me about it.
yeah, yeah. So and I always tell people like like put it back on yourself, like rather than like putting it on a coach or like a crystal or a book or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like put it on yourself more so than
Hmm.
anything because that is you are everything. You are the power, like you manifest everything, like it's coming from you. It's not the external things, it's you are the one who's creating everything. And I always like try to empower people that way because um I just want people to be like self-reliant. I want folks to be self-sufficient because truth of the matter is that they can do it themselves, right? And one thing that people always tell me is like oh, I bet like you want more clients and things like that. And my answer to that is no, because like abundance can come to me in any way. But
Right.
if folks can just realize that they are self-sufficient, they can do this on their own at one point, you know that's all I really kind of intend for. And I'm just like just a mere guide in their journey. But obviously ideally speaking, like I'm not going to be there forever, right? Like in their journey, like I want them to be self-sufficient. Like okay, learn whatever you have to, and then sustain yourself as you go, right? um
Exactly.
that's what I try to do. And like I feel like these days people, yeah, like there's just like what you said earlier as well, like there's just such a the space is really has become like saturated these days. And I have really mixed feelings about that because like there's a lot of misinformation that comes, and a lot of people, and this has been somewhat of a issue that's been kind of persistent for a couple of years at this point, I guess you could say, is that they kind of mix philosophies. They mix like tarot, for example, and things like that into manifesting, and it really kind of becomes a mess. But like I always tell people, like like follow your own truth in all this, like go out there and experiment. And I think that's what you did as well, is experiment all the time, right?
Oh, yeah, real quick, I gotta
Yeah.
say this, bro. I used to follow like, let me say maybe 7 or 8 coaches, and it was just confusing me because every single one gave a different philosophy, like you said. So, like for people listening to this, like if you're gonna follow a coach, it doesn't have to be me or Gautam. Just follow one, maybe two max that you
Max,
resonate
yeah,
with.
I
Because
agree.
like if you follow too many, you're gonna be like, okay, well this one said this, but this one doesn't believe in repetition. You know what I mean? It's just gonna confuse you. And like on TikTok, there's so many. All of a sudden, everyone's a coach now. Like there's so many of them, and it's like, dude, y'all even know what you're talking about. Like there were some that say, oh, if you keep affirming, it's obsession, and you're telling your subconscious you don't have it. Like what? No, it's not. Like no, the more you
Right.
repeat it, the more you saturate your mind to believe that you do have it. So there's a lot of quote unquote coaches that are giving like false information out there that are making people feel sad Like, so I always tell people, if a coach doesn't make you feel empowered, makes you feel like you can't, like you said, be self-sufficient, like you need more validation where you can just get it from yourself, then you got to stop listening to that person, because you are the operant power. I think I learned that from one of your posts. Like, we are the operant power. Like, everything
Right.
is like under our control. Like, even the way our SP thinks, the way our money is, it's literally our own thoughts. So absolutely, you know, you got to find a coach that you resonate with, and you can't listen to every single person, especially that thing you mentioned about tarot. Like, you know, a tarot reading is literally just a reflection of your own subconscious. It's not the end all
Exactly.
be all.
Yeah.
Like, one minute they could tell you that your SP loves you, the next minute they can tell you that they hate you. It's just a mirror of your own thoughts. That's not the end of the story. So you create that story.
Oh, 100%. Like that's what I always tell people is like, like with tarot, it's always reflecting your thoughts. So like if you're going to use tarot at any point, like just use it as a, you know, like a progress report of sorts. Like,
Right? A
okay,
exact. I like
yeah,
that. Progress
yeah,
report. Not confirmation, but a progress report.
progress report.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No, no, yeah, because they're literally just gonna like tell you, like, if you go into a tarot reading and you're feeling sad,
Hmm.
your reading's probably gonna be sad. It's just how it
Oh
works.
yeah, 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 yeah,
But if you
yeah.
go in like in a good mood, like you're thinking in the right direction, it's they're just gonna say, "Oh yeah, everything's good." It's because you're thinking everything is good. So it's just a mirror, just like the 3D. It's a mirror. So I also wanted to get into this, bro. Like, you know how like they say circumstances don't matter? I don't think enough people explain what that means, right? So
Hmm.
circumstances don't matter to me is you can be your account on your bank can be negative. But if you're constantly affirming, by the way, my main money affirmations, I'm gonna share it now. They're so simple. I used to like have so many, like you hear all the money affirmations like, oh, I'm a millionaire. Money comes to me easily, abundantly, frequently. It's too much, man. You gotta like make
Yeah,
it short and sweet. Like,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
the two that I've used, bro, that have changed my life the last 3 months is I'm so rich, I'm so wealthy. That's it. Because those two
Awesome.
statements,
Yeah,
rich and wealthy, it implies so many things. Because if you're wealthy, that means you have a lot of money. You know, if you're rich, like most people that are rich, guess what? They have multiple streams of income, right? Most people who are wealthy, they get money from everywhere. So you don't need to say 10 money affirmations. You know, it's too much. So those
right.
two have changed my life. But anyways, back to my point, if you're like not doing well financially, and if you're just saying all day every day, I'm so rich, I'm so wealthy, you're gonna love this. Even this is actually another quote: whatever needs to happen will happen. Whoever needs to move will move, whether it's 10,000 people or a million
Yeah,
people, they're gonna move. And this is my quote. This is a Wendell quote: whoever needs to be removed will be removed. That's like an SP thing. Like, so say for example, the SP as a third party, if you're affirming for the SP, whatever needs to happen for your manifestation to show up will happen. Whoever needs to be removed will be removed. So circumstances really don't matter, because if you're affirming something, the world will rearrange itself to make your affirmation true, if that
100%,
makes sense.
100%.
And
Yeah,
that's how it
yeah.
works. That's how it works, like magic.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you because like like whatever, like exactly what you said, like whatever has to move, like whoever
Hmm.
has to be removed, because this is your reality. Everything will kind of rearrange itself to kind of mimic whatever that's going on within. One way that I always talk about circumstances not mattering is that how they always say like the infinite parallel realities.
Yeah.
So I always like justify it to my clients like, okay, if the infinite parallel realities, there exists a reality where everything is perfect as you describe it, right? Like everything that you want
Mm.
already exists. So if you're quantum shifting into a new reality every single second, technically what you're just doing is you are stepping into a new reality where that's already a fact. So this is for folks who kind of worried about, well, how am I going to change this, or how is this going to change by itself? Well, you're technically not changing. You're just stepping into another reality, leaving this one, and stepping into another one where everything's already perfect for you. So there's no resistance. You're just hopping into another reality. And so that's why
Exactly.
it kind of seems like it changed overnight, but what you did was just kind of shift into a new one. So that's the kind of explanation I give to people who really can't like wrap their mind around like how will this happen, because I feel like a few or way too many actually kind of get wrapped around the how. So if you're one
That's
of
not
those
your
people,
job.
yeah,
That's not your job.
yeah, 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 exactly, it's not your job because even if you do know, that's one thing I always tell people is that even if you do know, what are you going to actually do about it? Like, you know, like, okay, if you know that your job is going to come to you via this employer, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep a lookout on your email? Like,
Yeah.
what can you exactly, you can't do much about it. Like, even if you do know how something is going to come to you, there's not much that you can, do. Rarely, very rarely can you actually do something to influence it, and even then it's futile because they're going to do it anyway. So what are you doing?
Wait,
you
real
know
quick, what's on? Did you watch any of the Marvel movies by any chance, like the Avengers
oh,
or like or Spider-Man, the
I
Multiverse of Madness?
oh, 100%. Like, I've been watching the MCU ever since like 2008. Like, we're talking like Incredible Hulk. Like, I watch every single movie.
No, did you watch Doctor Strange Multiverse of
Oh, yeah,
Madness?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I know the plot. I know the plot because I couldn't watch like the entirety of the movie, but yeah, I know the plot. I'm aware of it.
The
Yeah.
reason I'm asking you is because in the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, I'm going to give a superhero reference here. There's so many universes of different
Oh,
of the
yeah,
character
yeah, yeah,
Doctor
yeah,
Strange.
yeah, yeah.
So like he was dating this girl. I forgot her name, right? But there was another universe where that girl. It's funny because we're going to relate this to SP now. There was a universe, a parallel reality where the girl that he liked was married to him. There was another universe where that girl married
Oh, yeah,
someone
yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Bro, it's
yeah,
even in
yeah.
the movies,
Yeah,
man.
it's in the movie.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
so in life. So for those of your listeners who are trying to manifest a person, there's a version of that person that's already married to you. Like there's a version of that person that loves being with you, loves living with you. Because like people say, oh, you're messing with people's free will. No, you're not. You're just choosing a version of them that it likes you. And you're choosing that version because your self-concept, oh,
Exactly.
you're worthy and you believe that you deserve love, so you're also choosing a different version of yourself that deserves love, and you're choosing the version of that person that loves you because you deserve love, because you believe you deserve love. So like it's crazy, bro. Like when I saw that I was like, oh shoot,
Yeah,
people
that's
are
the thing.
night and
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like that's the thing. Like what you said. Like, people are night and day. Like, the shifts are so drastic at times that you can't believe like how quickly things can shift. And definitely, there exists a version that's perfect for you. I always call this like the ideal version of your SP, that
Mhm.
is kind of separate from the 3D version, because I feel like a lot of people always kind of react to the 3D version of their SPs and things like that.
That's what holds them
um,
back, man. That's what holds them back, honestly. That's what holds
yeah,
them back.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It does because and it kind of boils down to, kind of taking cues from the 3D, which, one shouldn't do that. And like for me, like these things are like, I kind of intuitively understand all these things, but like it was only when I like started teaching this, like, did I realize like, these things are not intuitively understood by many out there. And that's something that I kind of took for a long time, like took it for granted. But like, like one thing that I'm trying to help people like understand is that, like, hey, like there exists a version of your SP that's perfect for you, and you're manifesting that version. In the meantime, just ignore 3D, and if you persist in that ideal version of them in your mind, that version will pop up, like, because you're shifting into that reality basically. So you're
Wait,
gonna
real quick, you got
yeah,
to answer this for me because this is tough. So you're manifesting the version of them that is in love with you, right? But
yeah.
how do you deal like when they make stupid comments like, oh, like say for example, you want
Mhm,
your SP to like move in with you, right? But they
mhm.
keep saying like, oh, I'm looking for a place on my own, right? How do you react to that? Like, so do you just to that version that's saying, oh, I want to buy my own place, but you in your mind you want them to move in with you? How do you react to them while they're saying the opposite?
Right. So what I would do is that I would just like, just act like, just kind of play it off. Like, I'll just be like cool with it. Like, I
Like,
wouldn't
oh,
like try
okay,
to,
nice.
yeah,
You just
okay,
gotta like
nice.
play it
Yeah,
off.
yeah, 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 yeah. I'll just play it off. Like, kind of sipping the Kool-Aid. I'll be like, uh-huh, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I see you. Okay. But like, in my mind, I'm just like, no, you're moving in with me. It's like a Jedi mind trick. Like, a new hope. You're now moving in with me. you
Oh,
know?
that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just so when you don't like argue with them, you just say, "Oh, okay," you be cool, right? You just like act
Yeah.
like it's not doesn't bother you, but in your mind, you're like, "Oh no, you live with me."
Oh,
So
yeah,
that's what
yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying, right?
yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, because that's what I do. Or like, if it really kind of like, if you really want to hear it from them, you can always do a revision.
That's
You
true.
can always
Yeah,
revise it. But yeah, at that moment, like, just to kind of ensure that, you're not affected by their words or something, you can always like just do this. I always tell people like, don't take your SP's words to heart. Like, they,
Right, because they can
right,
change
like,
easily.
yeah, yeah, they can change. And like, if they might say one thing today, they might say another thing tomorrow. Like,
Mm,
when you anchor yourself that, okay, I'm gonna, like, act based on what I'm thinking, like what I'm assuming, rather than like the cues that the 3D is giving me. You can
mm.
break cycles that are, that has been there for a long time. Basically, you can break cycles when you anchor yourself in your own truth, right? Because if you are reacting to the 3D, and then, you create more of that, and then you react to that, and then you're creating more of that, and kind of becomes a, perpetual cycle. But if you anchor yourself, like, that's when you kind of, in your own truth, like, you kind of break that cycle. And
I
that's what I always try to do, is like, tell people to kind of break that cycle by anchoring themselves in their own truth. Yeah.
Because a lot of times, bro, like I'm sure you've dealt with this. Like you're coaching somebody, right, on how to manifest an SP, and they're doing so good. They're doing their affirmations, right? The moment their SP says something they don't like, they're like, oh, I got to change my affirmations, or oh, it's not working, But
Yeah. Yeah.
so when that happens, do you just tell them, no, 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 just keep affirming? It doesn't matter what they say, just keep going, and eventually it's going to change, right? Is that what you kind of like coach people to believe?
Yeah, so that's what I kind of do. Like, like, one, if it really bothers them, obviously we kind of work on, like, revising that or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But I always tell them, like, like, look at the big picture. Take a step back, like, look at the big picture. If you already know the end, where you guys are already, like, happily married or in a blissful relationship, would their words that they have said right now, would it truly matter?
Wow, that's deep,
Right?
bro. I like that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
deep.
So, like, and when you come at it from, like, that perspective, like, it kind of, like, frames things, and like, okay, if I already know the end, like, why would this matter? And you can kind of just brush it off, and you don't take it seriously, because things takes
Sam,
on the meanings that you give them. Yeah, sorry, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, no, Sammy Ingram made this quote. She said, "Why would I react to something that I know is going to change?" That changed
Exactly.
my
Yeah.
life, bro.
Yeah. I know. I think that's very profound. Like, I agree with her on that, because, yeah, things are changing rapidly. So, why? Because, like, I always tell people, like, things takes on the meaning that you give them. So if you
Hmm.
say this is not true, then it's not true. But if you, act like it's true, then it becomes true. So if you act
Exactly.
like your SP's words are, like, solid and never going to change and things like that, then, that's what's going to happen, right? But if you say no, they are changing their minds, they're having second thoughts, and they will have second thoughts. That's how
So back to
powerful
my
you are. Yeah.
example. So back to my example of like that person who wants to manifest their SP to move in with them, and their SP keeps saying, "Oh yeah, I'm like trying to look for my own place." So
Hmm.
do you? So as that person just continues to affirm, "No, she lives with me. She lives with me. She lives with me." Do you? Can you explain to people what happens? So what will happen? What will that SP just start to think? I think I want to move in with that person. Actually, like I think I should. Is that what happens in the 3D? Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
just start thinking these thoughts and
Yeah.
then they act on it.
So
How does that work?
something will happen, in their reality, which kind of influences their decision,
Ooh,
in a
okay.
way that like, makes them want to, move with that person, basically. So, it
Wow.
could be like, maybe they saw a friend, moving in with their boyfriend, or, partner, for example. And then, they get an inspiration, like, maybe, what, like, why shouldn't, why can't I move with this person? Or,
Wow.
maybe, yeah, and the best part is that they will think that this is their idea,
That's
through and
funny.
through, right?
That's funny.
um
Exactly.
it's always that, like, even if you tell them, like, okay, like, I manifested you, for example, like, they'll be like, no, but still, I took that decision, I was conscious of it, I was aware of it, and I'm wholeheartedly doing this. Like, that's how they will come
Wow.
at it from. Yeah. So something will happen in their reality, which kind of gives them that idea, that nudge, where it says, like, hey, why don't I move with this person? Like,
Oh, let me ask you this. What if that person that was affirming actually offered that SP to move in and they said no, but as they continue to affirm, eventually that SP will change
they
their
will take
mind
you.
and think it's
Yeah. So if, like, let's say I'm affirming, they will take me up on that offer, for example.
oh, okay. They'll be like, you know
Yeah.
what? Remember when you asked me to do it? I think I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Is
I think
that
I
what's
want to do
gonna
it. Yeah,
oh
yeah.
okay. And then but they're still gonna think that it was their idea even though they got offered it, right? 'Cause they're gonna
Yeah.
have a ping in their head like, maybe I should do that. Like that's what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah. Like, they might try to resist it and things like that, but, like, eventually, they will just be like, you know what, I'm going to take you up on that offer. Like, that's what they're going to do. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
It's crazy how people flip so fast, bro. Like I think that people need to understand like one moment they can hate you, but the next day they can literally be in love with you, asking you to marry them. Like it's crazy how people switch. It's night and day. And as long as you don't give up and don't like react to the 3D like you said, they're gonna change. They're gonna.
Oh, they
It's just
will.
the
Yeah.
law. It's the law. Like they have to. Whatever needs to happen will happen. Whatever needs to move will move. So they have to get the feelings. They got to get the thoughts, and like they're gonna change their minds. Like I've actually seen it personally, bro. So I think that hopefully people that are listening to this that are trying to manifest an SP, don't give up because it will happen. As long as you don't quit, it's gonna happen.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because like one thing I realized was like, yeah, people are always like changing their minds, even if it's like your boss or your manager or anyone else, like they can always change their thoughts, because like I feel like a lot of people have like too strong perceptions about like the people around them. Oh, this person will never change. They are always like this. Like, like see people as like, blank canvases, or some people being very fluid. um you know like don't define people, like that's one thing, is that like even for me, I don't like to define myself these days. Like, I don't like to say, well, I'm an introvert or an extrovert, or I'm this or that, because you are limitless beings, right?
Mm.
You can be anything you want, so why put yourself into a certain box and say, I am this, I am that? And to take it a step further, don't do it for others as well, because
Wait,
you
wait,
know
wait, hold
yeah.
on. Because I naturally am an introvert. Are you telling me that if I just affirm I'm an extrovert, I can have energy from people?
100%, 100%. Yeah, yeah. Like it'll be like, it'll definitely be like a gradual change, or like you might just realize, like, what, all of a sudden, like you are just comfortable around people. Like I
Wow.
was just like, one of my clients who was kind of like an introvert, like, she was like just kind of mixing around with people more these days. She was going on a marathon, and she was telling me, like, in the past, like I wouldn't have been able to do this, but right now I'm able to, because I started intending otherwise, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So that really does happen, like, when you see yourself in a certain way, the world will kind of like conform to that, and you might just find yourself in a crowded place, or with a group of strangers, for example, and you might just find yourself like being very comfortable, being very friendly, and just being in the zone, even if, like, that wasn't the norm for you all this time. It will seamlessly transition, and until like that,
Wow.
after that, like you wouldn't like, you may not realize it at that point, but like maybe, like, say you return home and you're like, holy shit, like, wait a minute, like, how did I manage to pull that off? Like, that's
Right.
not right normal, and like it'll just kind of click for you, and that's like the mind-blowing moment for you. Yeah.
So did that person just affirm like, oh, no, I'm an extrovert, like I get energy from people? Did she just affirm or did she just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
by
yeah.
the way?
Affirmations was like a part of her routine. Like, she really came at it from the perspective that, she can mingle with people, and that she's confident and things like that. And her
Wow.
reality did change, because yeah, because this was someone who, like, had anxiety over crowds and things like that. The fact that she was able to do a marathon, like, that was a big deal. So, because marathons are always crowded, and like, even for me, like, like, I used to have like anxiety and depression and things like that. I was like
Hmm.
clinically diagnosed, and one thing I was like, you know what, I'm not going to put labels on myself.
Wow.
And yeah, like, and I was discharged, within like 2 years and stuff like that. And I always tell myself, like, like, don't put labels on yourself, like, regardless of what's on paper or something like that, it doesn't matter. Like, as long as you don't label yourself as such, like, your reality will start to reflect that really quickly. So yeah, like, as long as you can do that for yourself, like, it should be fine. um
Wow.
yeah.
Well, also back to the Marvel thing. My favorite character, this is gonna make you laugh, is you know the Scarlet Witch?
Yeah.
Oh my God. You know she's like a manifester, right? Like she gets in people's heads and like
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
manipulates them. Okay, it's not manipulation for those listening, but when you're like, say for example, you're affirming for an ST, right? And you're saying they're in love with you, like they're gonna get a thought like, oh shoot, I think I like this person, you know? And it's funny because that's a Scarlet Witch. Like, you know, she can get in your head and then like you're gonna change your mind. And that's kind of what we do when we're manifesting people. Like we get people to change their mind, you know, like so it's a powerful, powerful thing. So I want people listening like, hey, dude, you're a superhero in your own way. Like you get to really influence how people treat you. Like the whole everyone is you pushed out, they're a reflection of what you think about them, you know? Like you're not manipulating anything. Like if one person may see you, bro, as like the nicest person, right? And you're gonna be nice to them because
Mhm.
they see you as a nice person. But then there could be somebody in your family who thinks you're mean. You're gonna naturally act rude to that person because that's how they see you. Does that make sense? Like
Right.
it's just it's so crazy how that works. Like do you believe that theory about everyone is you pushed out?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because that helps me to, not view SP as a separate entity. Like it
Mm.
helps me, one reason I don't feel like I'm manipulating someone, for example, is because why would I, because I'm so connected, like
Uh-huh.
we are all one. So I'm not manipulating anyone. Like when I change, like, like when I see myself a certain way, the world has to reflect that because everyone is me. Like, I'm not separate from anyone. So they're just like reflecting my inner world. So,
Wow.
they're just like echoing like what's within, and so that's how I kind of see it. So even SP is like, that's why we always say like thought transmissions are real. It's because like,
Yeah.
if everyone is within, obviously everyone can hear what's going on in your head, you know so when it gets externalized, yeah, they're just reflecting all of your thoughts, and that's, yeah, kind of the way I go about it. Yeah.
Based on what you're saying, that means that there's no such thing as no contact. Because if you think about it, like you know how they
Yeah,
say, "Oh yeah, we haven't talked," or blah blah. Well, if
in the
you're
3D, yeah, yeah, that's
in the
only in the
3D,
3D.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Because technically, if you're affirming that you guys are always in contact, that means that even if you're not physically talking yet, that person, based on what you're saying, has to be thinking about you, right? And eventually will lead the contact. Because if you're affirming, oh my God, we're together,
100%.
that person that's quote unquote in no contact is going to think about you. And as you persist in that, they're eventually going to have the urge to call you. Is that how that works?
Oh yeah, yeah. This is why like I always tell people like, sure you might not be in contact with someone, but you can always have inner conversations with people. It's
Can you
not
explain inner
preventing you.
conversations? Like how powerful that is? Like how does that work? When you say inner conversations, like do you imagine talking to them and then like feel it real or like how does that work, bro?
So yeah, so there are two types of inner conversation. So one is inner dialogues that you have with yourself.
Okay.
So you are just kind of monologuing to yourself with yourself all the time. You're just talking about stuff in your head. Maybe, and that's something to monitor as well, because that kind of sometimes affects your perception of someone, right?
Wow.
So yeah, if you're talking about someone in a bad way, that's not serving you and things like that, kind of watch that and like change it, right? So that's one thing, right? Like how are you talking to yourself on a regular basis? Like if you didn't do something well, like how are you, like are you criticizing yourself? Are you like telling yourself that it's okay? Are you being your own support there? Like how do you do that? So that's one way, right? Like how do you talk to yourself? How do you
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
perceive others, and like how do you kind of make sense about of the situation that's around you? So through the use
Yeah.
of your inner dialogue. Like, so that's one thing to look out for. The other thing is, inner conversations is basically like you're just doing a back and forth, a dialogue. It can be about anything, and basically you're just having a conversation with them. You can do it with visualizing, or you can just hear their voice, and you're just having a conversation with this person back and forth. And like it can be about anything and everything, right? Normally what I would do is like, if you want to like say something, like I would always make it a point to hear something favorable in return. Like, if you ask a question,
Oh, okay.
I make it a point to hear something favorable in return. Like, and if you're saying something, again, the reply should always be favorable, ideally speaking, because that way when they kind of show up in your reality, they're always like reflecting, they are doing things that are favorable for you, or they are saying things that are favorable for you. Because in your conversations, that has been the theme. The problem with many is that they do use inner conversations. Many use inner conversations all the time, but they do so in a unfavorable way.
Negative.
They are,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, they're having mental arguments with someone, and things like that. Like, it's also like, this is the example that I always use with people. It's like, that coworker or colleague that you may not have spoken to, but in your mind you always have a certain impression of them.
Mm.
Or you kind of like think like, how is this person XYZ? Or you just have a, even if it's like an internal dialogue, even if it's not an inner conversation per se, like people can feel that there's a tension in the atmosphere that you know folks can't explain, but they can sense it. Like, why are these two people like not even talking, but there seems to be something off, like and it's because probably like one person was just having some sort of a mental argument with another person, but the
Wait,
moment
real
they
quick.
change that.
Back
Yeah.
to your coworker. So say you're at work, right? And all
Yeah.
your coworkers are gossiping about you and like you're always thinking, "Oh my God, they're talking about me." If you like just randomly start affirming, "Oh my God, everyone at work loves me." Do you think their behavior will change and they'll stop that
100%.
gossip?
100%.
Wow, that's
So
powerful, dude.
So there's an example, there's a story, a personal story of mine, right? So I was in the military, I was in a office setting, right? So that's why I worked in a HQ. So
Mm.
it was basically like an 8 to 5, like,
Uh,
but like in a military kind of layer on top of it. Like my manager was a like a captain, my boss was a major, that kind of thing, right? So you do some military stuff, but like for like most of the time it was office work, right? So there came a point when like my team specifically, that was kind of led by me, like I was like kind of the main guy there at one point. um and we were getting like like the kind of the beating, so to speak, right? Like they were like saying like we weren't performing, uh and like our work wasn't important or something like that, like we were kind of disposable and things like that. It was so bad that at one point, like, I was going to get posted to the middle of the jungle potentially. Right.
okay.
Yeah, like which was like, it was like somewhat of like an all-time low point for me in my career at that point. And I was just like kind of pissed at that point as well, because I didn't feel felt like we were being appreciated for our efforts and things like that. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to take up that offer, like, I might as well go. And I was like, you know what, wait a minute, like, you can change this, like, if you, because this was like pre Neville, like in my life. So I knew law of attraction, but I didn't know Neville at that point. Like, I've heard
Mm.
of his name, like Aaron Dowdy has mentioned him at that point and things like that. So I know who kind of Neville was, but I've not heard any of his audios or anything of that sort. So it's like, okay, let's change it, like, let's try to do something about this. So what I did was, I kept like telling myself like, I'm the best soldier, I'm good at my job, and I used to hear my superiors tell me that they love me. So I used to imagine my
Wow.
boss and things like that, that they love me and things like that. So what ended up happening was, yeah, sure, like, there are a few guys you kind of butt heads with, that kind of like kind of rub you in the wrong way, and there are definitely folks like that. So what ended up happening in my situation was that the folks who kind of like didn't kind of change either got removed from work or transferred to another place. So they got transferred, and they kind of went out of my way. And like, and my work went well, and my superiors kind of approach kind of started to change around me. Their demeanor was much more positive, they were much more encouraging, they were much more understanding towards me and my team. And like, it became so good that by the time I left, like, I was in a very good standing, like I was almost like like a right hand man to my ma'am at that point. you know and it really changed. And when I look back at that event, and I was like, one thing that changed all of that was my perception, like my thoughts. And that kind of changed everything. And that's when I realized, like, if you change your thoughts, like, everything just kind of changes. So
You
it definitely works in
basically
the, yeah.
you use the reality stone in your own life
Yeah, 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 no, 100%, like, because like
and the
that
time stone to revise.
yeah, 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 yeah. Like, really, like, because it really changed. And I was like, this is really insane, because like, on the 3D side of things, not much changed. Like, I was still doing what I normally used to do. I was still giving my everything as I always do, right? But what changed was my thoughts on the situation. And yeah, again, like, I was really shocked when certain people were removed. Like, the folks who didn't really necessarily agree with me, like, they got removed. And that kind of like really surprised me, because I didn't see that coming. And again, like, this was one of those things where I only realized it upon reflecting. And this is
But
one
wait,
thing
those
I
people
yeah.
that got removed, did you affirm that they liked you, or you just affirmed that everything at your work was good? Like when they were being removed, like how did
Right.
that come
So
about?
I only focused on my bosses, as I said, like, when it
Oh, okay,
comes to
okay,
like them recognizing me and things like that. So I always say like, I'm the best at what I do, and that everyone
okay.
loves me and things like that. I did say everyone, but like, again, like, the people who, because these people, I
You
didn't really have a good impression of them per se, maybe. So I was like, kind of like, okay, maybe these people like didn't really gel with me. But I didn't really affirm for their exit per se, because there was
but
no
hey, but
way
like I
of
said,
yeah.
whatever needs to happen will happen. Whoever
Exactly. Yeah.
it goes back to that, and look, it
Yeah.
manifested that way. That's just
Yeah,
crazy, actually.
and the reason why they were removed wasn't anything to do with me in the 3D, right?
Right.
A couple guys, like, like they really kind of messed it for themselves, I guess you could say. And some really had to, because it was the pandemic at that point, so some people had to be
Yeah.
transferred because of, like, manpower. We had to shift it across like different things and whatnot, so like they kind of went to other bases and things like that. So it just kind of worked out for me. And
Wow.
yeah, so like that, and it really worked in a way that I didn't expect it to, like, and that is when I realized, like, this is powerful, like, you can influence things. And it was kind of like one of my early experiments, I guess you could say. So again, this was like pre Neville, so this was a while back, but yeah, this was definitely something that I always remember. Yeah.
But back to your inner conversation. So again, I know I
Yeah.
use this example like 4 times already, but that person who is trying to manifest their SP to move in with them, if they have the inner conversation and imagine their SP saying, "Oh my God, you know what? I can't wait to move in with you." Will that also trigger the thought transmission and that SP said saying, "You know what? I should just do it." So would that be a good time to use inner conversations too with
Oh
that
yeah,
type of
yeah,
thing?
yeah, yeah. So what I would do in that kind of a situation is like simply hear them saying like, "Hey, I'm going to take you up on your offer," for example.
Wow.
And simply like you, like, arranging the details with them, for example, right? Like, so what I would do is like, okay, this is your room, like me introducing that person to the room that they're going to be staying in.
Wow.
And like maybe even like, yeah, yeah, and like kind of have a natural dialogue. Okay, if they're really going to move in, what kind of a conversation are you going to have? Like, think about it that
Right.
way, right?
Wow. Okay. Okay.
How are you going to sort out the transportation? How are you going to sort out the logistics? And use that kind of like to have a natural conversation, like use those elements to your advantage. So that's what I
Gotcha.
would do. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we've spoken a lot of things in the conversation. There's one last thing I wanted to mention because this is actually what really changed it for me. Like when it comes to law of assumption, like I started in 2021, right? I started listening to
Hmm.
Sammy and like Hyler and all the people that are on YouTube and everything. I found a bunch of coaches on Instagram, right? I think I told you this, but what changed for me was the 10K challenge because like you said to me, it wasn't like obviously you're not going to do 10K forever, but it was like a boot camp, right? It taught me to be
Right.
disciplined, and then now I don't even count them anymore because I just naturally do it, right? So 10K challenge helped me a lot. The Isn't It Wonderful challenge helped me, but you won't believe, bro, what actually took me to an even higher level. And I'm going to mention it. Have you ever heard of overnight subliminals?
Right. Yeah. Like, you mean like music kind of tapes that have like affirmations like
Yes.
layered beneath it? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Have you used them at all? Just curious. Have you ever personally used them or
So
have you
yeah,
heard of them?
yeah, yeah. I have used, kind of experimented with them like very early on. Like sometimes I'll listen to some. The only thing was like, I think at one point like I had this limiting belief. Like someone brought it up. Some I don't know which YouTuber was this, but like they were saying something along the lines of, you don't know what the person is putting in the subs, and that
Okay.
kind of like kind of freaked me out for a bit. Because these days, like for me, like one thing is that when I sleep, right? Like I
Right.
can't strap onto anything. But sometimes what I do is like I'll listen to them on a like while in just in the daytime and things like that, but nothing consistent. But definitely, I feel like if it's definitely your jam, like go for it because it's definitely effective. Yeah.
Yeah, let me explain to you. Okay, back to that person. Yes, there are some weirdos on YouTube that have bad stuff in their affirmations. So yes, number one, if you're gonna use subliminals, you got to
Use the
find one that you
trustworthy,
can
yeah,
trust.
source.
You
Yeah.
can trust. You have to know what's in it because it does get to your subconscious. But it's powerful, bro. Because like, like for example, say someone who's broke, right, and
Hmm.
you're affirming you're rich, right. That person who's never seen money before, your conscious mind is gonna reject that affirmation, unless of course you repeat it. But the subliminals help because it bypasses the conscious straight to your subconscious. And those affirmations of I'm rich, I'm wealthy go straight to your subconscious. And then it
100%.
starts to
Yeah.
produce that. I like what you said. You like listening to it during the day. So the thing I love about subliminals is you can listen to them overnight if you want. And that is very effective because when you're sleeping, your conscious mind can't argue. So that's why it's effective. But during the day, like for example, let's say you're cleaning your house or driving or just doing random stuff, that's also a good time to listen to it because people think that you're in sats only during at night. No, you're in sats throughout the day. You're in sats when you're like not thinking consciously of anything. You know what I mean? Like when you're driving or when you're
Right.
cleaning your house. That's actually the perfect time to either listen to subliminals or affirm because if you don't affirm, you're sometimes your mind's gonna spiral when you're not doing anything. So I think like you'll probably agree with me when you're bored or like tempted to spiral, that's when you should affirm, and that's when you should do your affirmations.
100%. Like, what I normally would advise people to do is, like, when, especially when they're doing the dishes, or cooking or something like that, like, put something on, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's and subliminals and affirmation tapes are, to me, the same thing.
They're
Like,
exactly the same,
they're
bro. They're
exactly
the
the
same
same. Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's just
They're
a
the same
different
thing.
way
Yeah,
to impress your subconscious. The same thing.
exactly. Yeah,
It's just
yeah, yeah.
different.
The only, I think, difference is that, there's a music layer on top of the
Yep, yep.
for the subs, but essentially they are trying to achieve the same thing. And I think, like, if if you're savvy, you can even make your own, like,
You can. Yep,
honestly.
you can. You
Yeah.
can.
So
You can.
if yeah, if you think, like, if you can't trust any sources on the internet or something, like, you can always, like, design your own subs and everything, and you can put everything in, and just listen to it. Yeah, like, because I get that, like, what you mean, because sometimes it may be hard, like, for the conscious mind, maybe just bit too much of a resistance in the beginning. That's
Exactly.
fine. Yeah. So whatever tools, like, I'm all up for, like, different methods and things like that, like, um yeah, because, and I feel like you have to kind of find your sweet spot as well, because what
Hmm.
works for one person may not really resonate with the other, right? 100%. So, like, I always tell people, like, go ahead and find your sweet spot, like, what works for you and things like that, because, like, again, like, what works for you may not work for me, and you have to, the onus is on you to kind of experiment and find the perfect ones for you. So,
Exactly.
I
And
definitely tell people to experiment. Yeah.
the reason why subs work for me is because I'm sure a lot of people listening, I am a chronic overthinker. Like I think about
Right.
everything, like at night, like I think about different scenarios and everything. So the subliminals, obviously the ones that I can trust, have really calmed my mind. And I got to share a success story. So I was listening to overnight subliminals about wealth, right? Like the guy that did it on YouTube, High Vibes Now. I'll send you his stuff. And he's legit because he's like a social worker, and like he
Right.
even specifically put in his description, I would never put anything bad in here because that's bad energy and karma. Like, why would I do that? Right. So, like, okay, cool. I
Right.
like that he said that. And then he actually wrote down what the affirmations were. And it's just rain, bro. It's crazy. Like, it's actually cool technology because I'm listening to rain, right? But
Right.
underneath the rain, the affirmations are money comes to you from unexpected sources. Your money flows to you like water. You're so rich. You're so wealthy, which are my favorite ones, right? So I started that like back in late December, and I think I told you this, but I trade the stock market, right? Ever
Right.
since I started listening to the overnight subs, um, I'm always green. I'm always profitable, right? And I'm not giving all the credit to the subs because I still have to think, right? I still have to affirm during the day. I still have to do my money affirmations. But was it a booster? Yes, I think it was. So like you
Right.
said, you got to do what works for you. But even with subliminals, you can listen to it, but you can't let that be your only source, if that makes sense. You still have to think in your favor, like you taught me. You still have to think favorably. I think subs should be used as like a booster, not like the only thing you depend on, if that makes sense. Like tarot. You can't depend on tarot completely, but you can use it as a progress support. But at the end of the day, you still have to think the thoughts that will get you to where you want to be.
Right. No, that makes sense, because, like, that's one thing that people do is, like, they are like, well, can I think anything I want to, if I'm affirming all the time, and during the times when I don't affirm, can I just think anything I want to?
No, absolutely
Exactly.
not.
Yeah, because this is where the whole concept of mental diet kind of comes
Mental
into
diet.
play.
Yep, that's number
Yeah.
one, bro. That's number
Yeah,
one.
because everything that you're doing is, contributing to your mental diet, right? Like, so if you are, and one of my friends kind of mentioned this too, is like, thoughts, affirming is just like, it's just
It's just
a line of
thoughts.
thought. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
thoughts. So if you're going to be, thinking unfavorably, and then another time you're going to be just, affirming something, right? Like, it's going to contradict those two things, like,
hot and cold. Hot and
yeah,
cold. That's how you get hot
exactly.
and cold
Yeah.
behavior.
So it's really sending a lot of mixed signals, and your dominant one kind of just comes through, and that may be just a mess. So I would always, encourage people, like what you said, like, use it as a boost, but definitely, watch your thoughts, be aware of your thoughts, like, throughout the day. I feel like that's the thing, like, with people, is that they really want to kind of automate the process, which I understand, but there is a conscious effort that is to be made, right? And that's about as easy as it can get, right? Because you're not kind of exerting any physical effort, right? All you're doing is in the mind, and that's about as bare minimum as it can get, is that you're just changing your thoughts, and you're trying to think as favorable as you can. And yeah, so I would just say that, remind people that if you think that's hard work, like, trust me, like, it's about as easy as it can get, because you're not like moving mountains or anything like that. You're just changing your thoughts.
Yes,
And yeah, I know it's easier said
it
than done
does
at times, but
it
yeah.
it does take mental energy, but like you said, I'd rather affirm all day that my SP loves me than accept the 3D reality where you're not seeing that. Like, what do you want? You know what I mean? Like, how bad do you want it?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and like, say for example, you're affirming for SP. When you finally get that person, will you care how long it took or how many affirmations it took? No, you're just gonna be happy that it finally happened. Same with money. Like, once you say you manifest $100,000, are you going to be like, oh my God, I had to do a million affirmations? They're like, no, you got $100,000. Wouldn't you be happy? Like, I don't care how long it took. I don't care how many times I had to affirm. Like, I'm glad it happened. So I think that people, because, people, I'm going to be honest with you, bro. Like, there are some people in the law of attraction community that are lazy to affirm, and like, why?
Right.
What are you too lazy to affirm? What would you rather just sit in the reality that you don't want? It's like, so you do have to desire it. And yes, it does take mental energy and like, sometimes people see me like they think, oh, my life is easy, or like I never had to work for it. Yeah, I did. I worked for this in my mind. Like, I put in the time and the effort to
Right.
affirm. So, like you said, it does take energy, but it's way easier than manual labor, like moving mountains or digging up graves or doing construction work or anything like that. So, it does take work, but it is easy when you think about it. Like, dude, all you're doing is changing your thoughts. So, in that sense, absolutely, it's simple and easy.
And yeah, and one thing that kind of like kind of struck me as you were saying was like, manifesting is not a quick fix per se, right?
Mm-mm.
Like, you're still doing stuff, like, it's still mental effort, like, make no mistake about it. I feel like people think when they hear manifesting, it's technically a quick fix. But
No, it's not.
depending on the situation, yeah, it can take a, it's a process. It can take a while sometimes, because you're changing your thoughts, you're changing your thought patterns. But is it worth it? 100% it is, right?
Easy.
And that's what I always tell people, like, it's definitely not a quick fix. And I feel like part of the reason why they kind of shift from technique to technique is because they're trying to look for that quick fix, right?
Right.
That kind of unicorn that will kind of unlock that for them. And I always say, like, like, whatever that you're doing might be just the perfect one for you, the technique wise. So just kind of like keep at it, just keep going until it comes up. Like, just don't give up too easily. If it's just a few months, like, it doesn't matter, like, you keep affirming, like, that's still fine. I would say maybe if it's like taking years for you, then that might be something that you have to look into, obviously, thoughts wise, like, what are you thinking and stuff like that. But some people sometimes just affirm for like months, and they are like, oh, I've been affirming for a long time. And I ask, okay, great, how long have you been doing it? Like, they're like 3 months. I'm like, 90 days is nothing, like, on the face of the like, everything, like, 90 days is nothing really. So I would just say, like, just keep going and keep persisting, and you never know, it might just be around the corner, right? So don't be on
Exactly.
the
And
lookout in
also
the 3D. Yeah.
another thing, bro, like I think a lot of people like feel bad. Like, that you have those videos on YouTube like manifest in 3 days. And I believe in that. You can instantly manifest. You've seen it. But if you don't manifest in 3 days, you shouldn't feel bad. I think a lot of people feel bad when they don't get it fast and they think they're doing something wrong when it's okay. Like you said, 90 days is nothing. And sometimes it does take longer because you're working through beliefs that you've had your whole life. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? You're not just going to get rid of that overnight. So, for people who have been trying to manifest an SP for a long time, obviously you got to work on your limiting beliefs, you got to work on your self concept, blah, blah, blah. But don't feel bad if it didn't happen in 3 days. You know what I mean? Like, it's a journey, and everyone's journey is different. Everyone's timetable is different. Like, it might take me like 6 months to manifest an SP, but you might take you only 6 days because you don't have limiting beliefs. But that's okay. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with me and that you're better manifested than me. No, it's just that in that area of your life, you just happen to have less resistance.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I just think that everyone's journey is different. And I think that people, it's okay to believe in the manifest in 3 days, but if for any reason it doesn't, you shouldn't feel bad.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people tend to kind of like compare themselves with others
Yeah,
about this whole thing. And that's a they're kind of putting pressure on themselves, like, unnecessarily.
exactly.
And I always say, like, don't compare, like, your journey is unique to you. And that's one thing, like, with people, I've noticed is that, like, people spend way too much time on Facebook groups and forums trying to find that, again, that unicorn, like that perfect technique that can help them manifest in days, or in a very short period of time. And I feel like, rather than approaching it that way, what I would definitely encourage you to do is just stay consistent in whatever that you're doing, and let that, like, manifest it for you. Focus on, like, really believing that your desires are done. Focus on ingraining that assumption in your mind, and let that, like, manifest it for you you
You
know
know, it's funny, like when you see people like in forums and like someone posts a success story, the first comment isn't congratulations. The first comment is, "Oh my God, what affirmations did you use?" And it's funny
Trust
because
me.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you can't use that person's exact affirmations because number one, it has to be what's natural to you because everyone talks differently. You know what I mean? So the affirmations that work have to be the way you normally talk. Like for like it's funny like the law of attraction videos that some affirmations are so long, like I am in a happy, loving, committed relationship with the person of my dreams. That's not how I talk. My affirmations is my ass is obsessed with me. Like
Right.
you can't
Yeah.
use someone else's affirmation. You have to do one that is natural to the way that you speak. Like for me, like I said earlier, natural for me is I'm so rich, I'm so wealthy. That might not work for some. Maybe somebody likes the long one where it's like, oh, money
Mhm.
comes to me easily, frequently, abundantly from all sources, from everything from the universe. Some people like it long like that, but I personally like them short. So you can't just take someone's affirmations and use it because it might not work for you. So you have to find the ones that like resonate with the way that your language speaks.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Because, like you, for me, like, I always like to use short affirmations, like short and
Mm-hmm.
simple sentences, because I feel like it's straight to the point.
Straight
It's
to the point,
simple,
bro.
yeah, as you can get. And I'm not, like, complicating the process by any means. And one thing I would say is, like, if you feel like you need to include everything in your affirmations, just go general, and just
Yeah,
simply trust that, your higher self kind of understands what you're saying, because it does. Yeah.
it does. It does. Your subconscious, oh, people don't realize it. Your subconscious is smarter than you think. Your
It is.
subconscious
It
even
is.
understands other languages, by the way. It's crazy. I was reading about it. Like you're like say for like there was this person that's like, "Oh, I don't speak English. Can this help me or whatever?" He's like, "Yes." Because your subconscious understands. You're also like if you like say like those subliminals I was talking to you about, like if you play it on like 2 speed on YouTube, your subconscious will still take it, but your conscious is like, oh shoot, I can't hear that. But your subconscious is so smart. So it will know what you're implying and it can listen and hear so many things that your conscious mind can't. So you never should underestimate it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because, like, for me, sometimes I would affirm in my mother tongue as well.
Uh-huh.
Because it kind of just resonates with me. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, one thing I didn't realize for a long time is that my inner dialogue was just in my mother tongue for a long time. Now it's like a mix, but when I first started out, like, my inner dialogues were always in my mother tongue, because that's how I kind of spoke to myself all the time. And so, like, even without me realizing, some of my affirmations were in my mother tongue. And
Right.
I didn't, and for me it was so intuitive. Like, I was like, of course my mind understands, like, why wouldn't it, right? But this kind of shows, like, how much sometimes people tend to overthink this stuff, because I didn't think about this until someone actually kind of raised that point with me, like, and I was like, oh shoot, like, that's actually a good question, I didn't even think about that. But again, like what you said, the subconscious mind is so intelligent. Like, the way I always say it, it's like, if you are a child trying to describe something, like, think of the subconscious mind as like a parent, right? Like, a child may not, like, know how to say, like, a certain word, but you know exactly what the kid wants, and you give the kid
Wow.
exactly just that. We see videos, like, where, like, there was this cute video where I was seeing, like, this girl was, like, trying to say, like, strawberry, and the mom was, like, wasn't understanding at first, and then she was like, oh, you mean a strawberry? And she was, like, so relieved. That's how I kind of view the subconscious, is like, it understands eventually, like, what you're trying to say.
Yep,
And
it
it's for
does.
this reason why I always tell people, like, you can even visualize, like, symbols as well. And there's a whole nother realm to it. Like, you can imagine things like, I always, like, tell some this to my clients, like, if you want to heal, like, you can imagine yourself, like, being like Superman, and, like, kind of absorbing the radiation from the sun, to heal, for example. And you can use those types of visuals to kind of, like, symbolize that you are healing, and your subconscious mind understands what you are saying exactly, even in those types of scenarios, because
That's
it's
deep,
so
man.
intelligent. Yeah, it's so intelligent. Like, it knows exactly what you mean at every single time, and that's exactly why general affirmations work. Because when what's favorable for you in your dictionary may not be favorable in my dictionary, for example, but it understands what I say when I use the word favorable. Like when I say everything is
Exactly.
favorable, it understands exactly what I mean.
See,
And
for
that's
me,
what,
I
yeah.
don't get that. For me, it would be I wouldn't use that because that's like your language. For me, it's like everything always works out for me. That is
Right,
like natural. But like,
right,
yeah, you got to go with what works for you. And the last point what I'm gonna make as we end this is like the subconscious is so smart, but this is what changed my life. Honestly, this is besides subliminals, all the stuff I mentioned. What changed my life is the understanding that the subconscious has no eyes. And what I mean by that is like, yes, it's smart, but it doesn't, it's a proof producing machine, right? It produces proof of what you're constantly telling it. So your subconscious doesn't see what's in your bank account now, it just produces what you keep telling it. It's, oh my god, bro, this is mind-blowing. So like you could
right,
literally be broke in the 3D, but if you keep telling your subconscious, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, it has to produce proof of what you're telling it. So the reason why people are stuck in their current reality is because they keep reacting to the 3D. And when you react to the 3D, you're basically telling your subconscious that that's your truth, like you said, and that isn't your truth. That's just temporary. So as long as you, like you said earlier in this podcast, like ignore the 3D, but just affirm what you want, that's what your subconscious will listen to and it will produce. So like if your SP is saying that they hate you in the 3D, but if you're telling your subconscious, oh my God, she's so obsessed with me, she's in love with me, eventually that has to change because it's the subconscious's job to produce proof of what you're telling it. The problem with people is they're telling it what they don't want because they're reacting to their current 3D. But if you would just ignore that because the subconscious can't see it anyway, you just tell your subconscious what you want and that's what's going to manifest. So I think if we all understand, I think me and you, we still struggle with that too, even as like coaches, right? But as we get better with that, we're going to create the reality that we want.
oh yeah, yeah, 100%. Because like I think that's what Neville always says is like, like deny the evidences that your senses provide. Like he always
Yep.
talks about that. Like in the
Yep.
Bible, I think like they talk about like Daniel who
Oh,
kind
you
of
walk
turned his
by
back
faith,
on.
not
Yeah,
by
yeah,
sight. That's a Bible verse, bro. That
yeah,
you
yeah,
walk by
yeah,
faith,
yeah,
not by
yeah,
sight. The
yeah.
same thing, same concept.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I think like like there's this story about like I don't know who is this exactly in the Bible because I'm not too familiar with it, but like Neville always mentions this guy called Daniel kind of turning his back on
Mm.
the lions and kind of
Yeah,
facing God. And like that's always like used as a reference when like to ignore the 3D and to look at what
yes.
you actually want. And I always kind of go back to that, like I always kind of remember that, like, okay, the 3D, as solid as it may seem, is just a illusion, it's just a hologram. Like I always kind of treat it as such.
That's a
um
crazy Bible story, bro, because in the 3D, that guy should have died. Like he was
right.
in the lion's den. In like any natural circumstance, that Bible character should have been eaten by the lions. But yes, he focused on God. Or in the in 2023 terms, he focused on what he wanted, not what he didn't
Exactly.
want. And
Yeah,
then the lions or the 3D, the circumstances did not matter because his focus was not on his 3D, which were the lions. His focus was on God, which is what he did want. And guess what? The 3D couldn't touch him. The lions couldn't touch it. Oh my God, it's a great example, bro. I actually knew that
yeah.
story. I never related it to law of assumption till now. That actually is very profound.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, I mean, this is, yeah, and I always kind of go back to that specific story because it really resonated with me. I was like, and that kind of shows, like, how people shouldn't be focused too much on the 3D. Like,
Yeah, because those are
90% of,
bad
yeah, yeah,
circumstances. Those are horrible circumstances. So if that guy could escape the mouth of a lion, you can't escape being broke. You can't escape your SP saying things that you don't want. You know what I'm saying? Like you see how like that's crazy. Like you when you compare it that way, like you can. Your mind is so powerful that you can not be eaten by lions.
oh yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. So you just
you
have to
can
turn a
manifest what
blind
you
eye
want.
and just, depend on your inner
Wow.
world. Like I always tell people, like, depend on your inner world,
Mm,
ignore the outer world as much as you can. Like,
my
depend on
God,
your inner
that's
world.
deep.
Like take cues from that. Yeah.
Wow, I've known about Daniel the day because I grew up in church. I'm a Christian. Like I didn't
Right, right,
see.
right.
I never used. I didn't know Neville did that. Thank you for telling me that. I didn't
Yeah,
know, dude.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
actually
yeah.
life changing. That's basically like Daniel turning his back on the lions. That's the same thing as the subconscious is blind. You don't look at what you're seeing. You tell your subconscious what you want, and then that's what's going to manifest, not what you don't
Yeah.
want.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Because like one thing that they always say is like, the mind really can't like differentiate between what you see in your mind and what you see in the 3D. Like your
They
mind really
can't.
can't. Yeah,
It doesn't
it
know
can.
the
And this
difference.
is why like placebos work. This is why like whatever, like mind based treatments work, like therapy wise, like how they use like I don't know if you have seen this before, but like for amputees and stuff like that, they still have like itches in their arm. If let's say I lose like an arm, for example, I could still feel that arm itching, for example.
Yep.
Like this
Yeah.
yeah. So what they do is like they use this mirror therapy where they kind of reflect the other arm, and then they kind of scratch that and to kind of like let go of the itch, right? So
Right.
your mind really can't tell, like in your 3D, like you don't have an arm, but in your mind it really can't tell that, right? So it's insane. Like the mind kind of has its own, like it operates on its own, like it's separate from this reality. And the only reason why 3D matters is because we allow it to matter, right? The
Mm,
moment we stop making it matter to us, it doesn't. So and how do we do that? We don't take reference from the 3D anymore. We don't react based on the 3D anymore. We react based on what's in our mind, and that's a game changer, honestly.
it
Yeah,
is, and like I love you said about placebos. Like when I go back to my subliminal thing, bro, I don't care. For all I know, it might just be a placebo. But if it works, it works. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't
absolutely.
care if
Yeah,
it's a placebo because a lot of times it is a placebo. But you can use anything as a placebo. Like you can literally say, "Oh, every time I drink water, my SP calls me." If you say that over and over again, it's gonna work. You know, like that's how crazy our brain is. You know, like if you say, "Oh yeah, if I go to the gym every day." Um, I'm going to make more money the next day. It's going to manifest because placebos work. So I actually do believe in placebos. So when you say that, like, there was a story in World War II, like these people were like in pain, right? And they ran out of morphine. So the nurses were
right.
like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So they just told the soldiers that this is a painkiller, but it was really just salt, right? And their brains thought that it was the painkiller and it worked. So it's just
Wow.
crazy, man. Like you can tell your brain anything, like you said, it'll believe it, man. So again, like if the person you're trying to manifest, right, is telling you one thing, like, oh, I don't like you, leave me alone. But if you're affirming, oh, she's in love with me, your subconscious like, oh, she is? Okay, let's produce that. But it's only going to produce what you're dominantly saying. So if you're also simultaneously affirming what you saw in the 3D, it's going to be like, oh, shoot, which one do I? It's going to do
Yeah,
what
because you
your
can't
dominant
serve two
thought.
masters at any given time, right? So
Yep.
that's what they always say. So yeah, like whatever is dominant becomes your quote unquote master, so to speak. Yeah,
You can't be double-minded, bro. You can't waver. That's
you
a
can.
Bible verse
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just it's one or the other. So what? Okay, last thing. What tips do you have to give people to be able to ignore the three? Because sometimes when it's right in your face, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be sometimes emotional. So how do you turn your back on the lion, so to speak? Like how do you ignore what that person's saying? How do you ignore that negative bank account? Like how do you ignore that and focus on what you want? Like what's the best strategy to doing that?
Like like what I would do in these types of cases is like just remind yourself that this too shall pass. Like whatever
Mm.
that you're facing right now is very temporary.
Yes.
Yes, it may suck right now, but it's very temporary. Like things are gonna change like really really quickly for you. So just keep at it. Like this isn't like like I think was it Steve Harvey who said this, but like if you're in hell, like why would you stop that? You keep going, right?
Oh, you keep going. You don't stay in hell. Yep, you don't stay in hell.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So and that's kind of like my mentality, that like okay, whatever you are in right now, like you don't have to deny it per se, you can acknowledge it, but but also remind yourself that hey, this is temporary. Like this
Hmm.
isn't going to last forever. This might be a situation now, but things can always shift really quickly. So sure, this is where I might be, but it's not where I'm going to end up at, for sure, because I already see the end in my mind. This changes nothing, with regards to that. So and I'm going to persist in that even now. And and that's what I tell myself, like like take myself throughout the day, like okay, do whatever I have to, but keep telling myself that okay, it's all happening even now. Every step that I'm taking, however unlikely it may seem, is still a step closer to my desires. And I always like come back to that as much as I can. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that because like law of attraction people say, oh, it's not real. No, it is real. What I'm going through right now is very real.
You did
But
it. Yeah.
but if you redirect your mind, that's also going to redirect, if that makes sense. Like the 3D will also redirect. So yes, it's real, but like you said, you still want to stay persistent in what you do want. And as long as you stay persistent in what you do want, the world will rearrange itself to match that. So I think that that's like
Absolutely.
super powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to tell the audience, or like how they can find
Yeah,
you? Yeah.
yeah. Obviously, you can find my Hope Nuggets, but last thing I wanted to add, bro. Like for example, two things. If you're manifesting money, right? Like obviously you can say your affirmations, but one thing you should always add, I think you'll agree with me with this, is manifesting money was so easy. For your SP, yeah, she loves me. Oh my God, manifesting her was so easy. I think people need to add those because sometimes people think that manifesting is hard, and like we both said, it does take effort and it could take
Mm.
time. But as long as you're affirming, oh my God, it was so easy, it's gonna be easier and it's gonna feel natural and it's gonna be like breathing eventually. And it's like, oh shoot, I'm the Scarlet Witch. I can have whatever I want,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and that's how I feel right now. Like I really feel like the world is my oyster. Like this is my movie and everyone is just part of it. Like I feel like super like powerful. Oh, that's another thing. We should all affirm I'm so powerful, because we are. We don't realize we are. Like the world is like under our, not saying under our command, but like we have control over so much that we didn't realize we had control over. So manifesting is easy. Manifesting money was easy. Manifesting SP is easy, and I'm so powerful. Like I
Oh
think
yeah.
if you
Yeah.
add those, your life is gonna change.
Yeah, just really quick, like, is that what you did when you said, like, when you did the "Isn't it wonderful" kind of experiment? Like, is that what you did, or how did that like work for you? Was it like slightly different to this, like, in the sense that, like, did you just say like that was so easy, or like how did that go for you when you used
Yeah,
the
yeah.
"Isn't it
Okay.
wonderful"? Yeah,
So when I did Isn't It Wonderful, oh my God, I was crazy. I did it like all day, right? Like
right,
10,000 times and it worked. I love Isn't It Wonderful and I still do it every single day. But I think I asked you like a couple months ago, hey, can you do just blankets or do you still have to do specific ones? And I remember your answer was so good. It was like, you can, yes, the blankets do cover everything, but there are some things that do require more attention. You know what I mean? That have like resistance. So when it comes
right.
to like, for example, SP and money, which are like the two things that like are profound for me, is I did add in there, yeah, manifesting money was so easy. And then like it just started happening faster. Like even with like SP, like, oh my God, manifesting her was like so easy. Like, dude, that's the easiest thing I ever did. And like when you add the words easy in there, it takes the pressure off of you. It makes it seem
Hmm.
more natural. And then you just see movement faster. So yeah, so I started adding easy in there. um this law of attraction affirmation was one I used a long time ago. Actually, it was life is so easy, life is so good, all good things come to me, right? But like I just started adding that thing. Manifesting is like so easy for me. It's just like it's the easiest thing in the world. So when you look at it, because if you say, oh my God, manifesting is hard, guess what? It's gonna be hard because your subconscious is
Right.
like, oh my
Yeah.
God, you're saying it's hard. Oh, let's make it let take a long time. Let's add opposing thoughts. So no, as long as you're affirming, oh my God, that was so easy, it
Hmm.
actually is easy. I think the reason why it's hard is because we affirm it's hard, but as long as you affirm it's easy, it's going to be a lot quicker. So I had to remind myself that right now, and also to the listeners right now, manifesting is the easiest thing you'll ever do. All it is, like you said earlier, it's just thinking in your favor. That's all it
Yes.
is. I wish I knew it was this easy, dude. Look, if I knew it was this easy, I never would have searched for all these coaches. I never would have tried all these techniques. You are the technique. All you had to do is think as if you already have it. That's it. It's that easy. People think, oh my God, it can't be that simple. No, it is. And once
It
you
is. It
realize that
is.
it is
Mhm.
that simple, it's like, oh my God, I can have whatever I want.
But I feel
And
like, yeah, like people do go through the process to kind of, I feel like, it's just a kind of a natural kind of pathway that they take. Like, they kind of go through like learning all the ins and outs of it to kind of understand how simple it is, if that makes sense. I feel like it's a rite of
oh,
passage, you
to
know?
make it even simpler, I
Yeah.
know we use like, isn't it wonderful? Everything in my life is perfect, blah, blah, blah. Those are great blankets, but the best blanket, bro, because, manifesting, the purpose of manifesting is to get your desires, right? So the easiest blanket is I already have everything I want.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Because the whole purpose of this is to get what you want, right? You
yeah,
want the
yeah,
money, you
yeah.
want the SP. So if you're affirming, I already have what I want, your subconscious knows what you want, bro. So like if you just say that as a blanket, it covers. I think, in my
100%. Yeah.
opinion, it's even more powerful than "Isn't Wonderful? Everything Life's Perfect" because I already got what I want. And then you can even condition "Isn't Wonderful" what that I already have everything I want. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad like you mentioned that specifically the last part, because like having that kind of dialogue with yourself, that's perfect. Like if like that really resonated with me, like that's something that I do often. So I really like that approach. Yeah.
Which part exactly? Can you
Like
confirm?
basically the part where you said like isn't it wonderful, like what, like that I already have all that I want, like
Oh
just
yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of
That's
doing
in
that
the
kind of back and
conversation.
forth. Yeah, kind of that back and forth prompts with yourself. I love that kind of stuff, because I kind of do that with
True.
like I always tell my clients to do it with like SP and things like that. So it's like I will ask like to tell my clients like, okay, ask yourself like, okay, who is this person, and then I'll just say
Mm.
like, okay, my husband or my girlfriend, or things like that. And then who are you? I'm their boyfriend or girlfriend, and things like that. And so like I kind of, and I will just say like, and you guys are, yeah. And then I'll just say like, okay, you guys are in a
Wow.
blissfully happy relationship or something like that. So I kind of like make them do these types of prompts in their mind, sometimes, because it kind of really clicks for some people as well this way. Yeah, it's like
It
kind of walking
does.
a child through like that kind of momentum. So yeah, I
because
really
your
kind of resonate with
subconscious
that. Yeah,
because your subconscious picks up on that as real, and then it just produces it. So yeah, because like you said, it doesn't know that that's just an imaginary act, but like you said, the subconscious doesn't know what's real and what's fake. It's just going to take it as real. And then as
exactly.
long as you
Yeah.
keep doing that conversation, same thing with earlier when we talked about the SP saying, oh yeah, I will move in with you. It's going to manifest. It has no choice. It's just the law.
Yeah. So it's like you should just act like it's already done. If
Yeah,
somebody was in your living space, like how would you go about it? What would that feel like? you know and things like that, and start thinking about that, like and what would that feel like? How would things be different? What would remain the same? What would be better? And I think that just thinking about it from those perspectives, that will really help you. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. But hey, man, this was a pleasure. It was a great time, and
Awesome.
hopefully
Yeah.
people got something out of this. And let me know if you need anything else from me, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to do more with you. Definitely, I feel like this is gonna blow up, like definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it was a pleasure having you. Thank you for your time, and yeah, like I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, brother.
All right, yeah, you take care then. Yeah,
All right. All right.
right. Yeah. So guys, thank you for so much for watching. If this video resonated with you, be sure to drop a like and a comment down below. Turn on your bell notification so that you guys will know when I upload a new video or a podcast every single week. So guys, stay safe and happy manifesting. Peace.